Gordon says, hey guys, I hope you're still well and safe this week. Thanks, Gordon. It's good to hear from you, man. He says, I have a quick question. If you're using a Google RYS Drive Stack from MGYB to boost the rankings of a GMB listing, what specific GMB link would you target with the Drive Stack? Or if you think it is more effective to target more than one specific link, which GMB links should you target? And can you also hammer those links with a bunch of other backlinks, or is it best to only use the Drive Stack? As usual, your help is much appreciated. Yeah, my preferred link, if I'm just going to use one, which typically when I have the Drive Stack built, it's only going to promote the one, and that's the CID equals. So the maps, again, gather up extension, go to Chrome, and you can get the gather up extension. That's what's up here. For example, let's just see if I can find one here. Okay. So right here is a GMB, right? So if I click the gather up extension, so if you just go to Google and search for the Chrome, gather up Chrome extension, you click on that, and right there, that maps URL right there. That one right there is the one that I like to use, which is to submit with the MGYB order for SEO Power Shield. But there are others that you can do. So for example, and I'm just going to show you, again, that's the one that I typically use. And I usually only submit the one. But if you wanted to submit additional URLs as, for URLs in the field in the order form that says, additional URLs that you want to push relevance to, or build the stack to, or whatever the terminology is, you got the long URL here that unfurls. So essentially, sorry, Zoom thing just came down on me. Just give me a minute. I should go back. All right. So this URL here, when you click on that URL or paste and go into the address bar, it's going to unfurl once the page loads here into this URL. So that's another URL you could submit. You could also shorten that URL because it is big and long and ugly. You could also shorten that with, like, say, the MGYB.co shortener. And then you could submit the short URL that is essentially a redirect to this unfurled long URL. Another one is if you go to share, go to embed a map, and then there's that view larger map button right there. If you open link a new tab, that's yet another URL. Does that make sense? So that could be another URL. And then, again, once the page loads, it changes, and that's it. So that could be yet another URL that you submitted if you wanted to. Again, I typically don't go through all that. I just use this one right here. That's the preferred method in my, for what I do anyway. Comments on that?
Oh, because you're trying to rank them up.
That's
so
it.
Why try anything else? Now you could push links to power up your Drive Stack, which is linking to the map, because otherwise you would just be powering up everything else that's related to it. You could also put your GMB iframe on a page on your website. Take that and iframe that on the G site and hit that. So many ways to do this, man. That doesn't involve just getting that one URL where you could hammer the G site URL. But again, it's coming back to Google and getting the protection from Google. That's the whole idea behind the whole RYS concept, is using Google not only to rank in Google, but to protect yourself from Google. It's always been the entire concept, and the foundation of RYS Academy, because it's so much information is out there that's irrelevant. The foundation has always been iframes. Look at our G sites. Look at what we do. Look at how we do the link building and the embeds plus link building. Foundation is iframes.
Yeah, and one more is the share URL. So if you do the share, and this one is a short URL, which is it's a 302 redirect. It actually has a few hops. So, like, for example,
it's a 302 chain.
Yeah, it's got, yeah, again, several hops. I'll show you what I mean. So you'll see it's got a 302 hop before it goes, essentially converts to that long ugly URL that I was just talking about. Mm-hmm. So this is not one that, like, if you're trying to push essentially link juice, right, link equity to the Google Map URL, that's not a good URL to use, that short one, that share URL, right? However, I have been doing some testing with publishing that in, like, just for content where I'm not, or in places where it's a no follow link, for example. And I've actually seen some benefit from share, like publishing that URL or linking to that URL, again, where I'm not trying to push link equity into it. I think there is something to be said. I don't have enough proof of this yet to fully, get behind it, but I think there is something to be said for actually doing some like content marketing where you're linking to that short URL just to add some variety. But again, when it comes to like, again, I've been doing a lot of backlink analysis and stuff with Majestic recently. And I like to try to push trust flow into the Google Maps URL, the CID Maps URL that I was just showing you from GatherUp, for example, this one. And if that's the case, you can't, you can push trust through no follow links. But the way I look at it is it's not actually passing page rank, right, to that URL. So through the short URL, it does, however, through this URL. So like I said, if I'm going to be doing like some high powered link stuff with do follow links or follow links, then I would do it through this URL here, or one of the long URLs like we just showed, or the embed URL from the share button, as I just mentioned here, right? So that's that one right there. But for content marketing purposes and on places where there, you might be listing NAP and then, the website address and then a link to the map URL. Sometimes I think it makes sense. Like I said, I've seen some benefit recently from posting that short share URL in some places. So, but I don't have any like hard data on that other than just seeing some interesting things occur. So I don't know. You have any experience with that, Marco?
The hard data is the distance graph algorithm.
Yeah.
Whether you're building up PageRank strictly to push power, or you're building up the ranking score algorithm through the distance graph, through the art of art, which is activity, relevance, trust, and authority.
An association, yeah.
Just because a link doesn't pass PageRank directly doesn't mean that the activity on that link, both at the origin and destination of that link, it doesn't mean that activity isn't seen, and whether it's relevant doesn't mean that that's not seen. And then what happens at the end of that? How much trust and authority are you building up because of everything else that you're doing through that link? Google measures all that, and it all ends up as a ranking score. But the only way that we can build PageRank, which is the doorway into the ranking score algorithm, is through follow links. Everything else, guys, the algorithms, and I'm not going to go through all of the ones that are involved and all of the ranking factors, but they're so intertwined that it no longer matters, except for PageRank, if you're using follow or no follow.
That's right.
Because what you want on those no follow is activity anyway. Activity, you want the relevance, and you want the trust and authority, because there's 3,000 other ranking factors that you can positively affect by dropping art into that link. And so it no longer makes a difference. It just depends on how it's targeted. And Gordon, it's time for you to come over to the dark side. It's time, man. We keep telling you, join the mastermind, join the heavy hitter club, and come get the real deal on how to put all this shit together. Asking questions every Wednesday is fine, but you're never going to put everything together like you can when you're there in the webinars and in the training and applying, and you're with like-minded people who will push you into doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Agreed. And let's see, I was trying to find, let's just do this. Something else I want to just share real quick is, it's interesting. I'm not seeing the share button here. That's kind of interesting. Let me try it again from. All right, so here, whoops. If you click into like if you've got reviews too, by the way, and you click into them and you see how the share button comes up, that's also, those are really good URLs also, if you're going to be, link building and things like that. And not just, as I was talking about with 301, the redirects, 302 redirects and all that, but these also I found tend to work great if you build links to these. So you get a share URL, just like we talked about with the map itself, that once again is the same type of a redirect. If we go here, you'll see that it's going to give you basically the same thing, a 302 redirect. See that? So it's the same thing. What I'm saying is when you're doing content marketing and things, press releases is a great source for this, because in fact, you can even ask us or Press Advantage to publish press releases or write a press release about a review. And so a lot of the times that's what we do for what I do for clients and lead gen assets and stuff, is I will have the copy link from a review, and that will become the basis of the topic of a press release, where essentially they're just, you know, announcing or highlighting or showcasing a 5-star review. So these are really good as well. Again, if you want to talk about pushing, you know, page rank, link equity into the actual map, then you can take that URL and unfurl it in your browser and wait for everything to fully load. And once it does, you can take that URL as you just saw it change and shorten that with like MGYB.co, for example, the shortener, right? And then you can submit that. But as I said, it makes sense to also publish that in content marketing, especially publish this share URL, because that's what non-SEOs would do to share a review. Does that make sense? Only SEOs that only people that would shorten a long, ugly map URL and all that is SEOs. Does that make sense? Nobody else will go through that problem. If they're just going to share a review, they're going to copy the share link. So I like to mix it up, and I like to do both. I like to push PageRank into the maps listing, but I also like to do a more natural kind of content marketing and link to assets within the GMB the way that non-SEOs would link to them. And as Marco said, that kind of helps to build association across the board. So there you go. All right, where were we? That was a good question, though. Thank you.